Chapter 1. The bench. Sean Burton had learned how to work in fragments of time. He answered emails in the spaces between laughter, drafted proposals between the squeak of swings and the thud of sneakers on mulch, and learned to recognize his son's footsteps the way some people recognize doorbells. Evan ran differently when he was tired, when he was hurt, when he was about to ask for something. Right now, Evan was running like joy had weight and momentum. Sean glanced up from his laptop just in time to see his 6-year-old streak past the picnic tables, cheeks flushed, hair sticking up in a way that meant he'd forgotten to care entirely. Sean smiled despite himself. That look, wide, unguarded happiness, was the reason he worked late nights and early mornings. It was the reason he learned to balance spreadsheets on his knees instead of retreating to an office. The park was small, tucked into their neighborhood like an afterthought, but it was clean and shaded, with enough activity to make Evan feel surrounded and enough quiet to make Sean feel anchored. Sean liked parks because they were honest. No one was pretending to be anything there. Parents were tired. Kids were loud. Life happened in daylight. Evan disappeared into a cluster of kids near the slide, and Sean returned his attention to the screen, typing until the words began to blur. He was just closing his laptop. Lunch was approaching whether he liked it or not, when Evan came barreling back toward him. "Dad!" Evan skidded to a stop, breathless. "I made friends." Sean braced himself. "That's great, buddy." 2 other children trailed behind Evan. A boy about his age with a missing front tooth and a girl smaller by a head, her curls bouncing as she struggled to keep up. They were talking all at once, words tumbling over each other in the way children spoke when they hadn't yet learned how to pause. "This is Noah," Evan announced, pointing. "And this is Lily. She's his sister. We were playing pirates, but then we were astronauts, but then..." "He fell off the spaceship," Noah interrupted proudly. "I didn't fall," Evan protested. "I jumped." Sean stood, instinctively smiling. "Hi," he said, pitching his voice to calm authority without stiffness. "I'm Evan's dad." The kids nodded solemnly, as if that explained everything. "Dad," Evan said, tugging his sleeve, "can they have lunch with us?" Sean blinked. It wasn't the request that surprised him. It was the certainty behind it. "Well," Sean said carefully, "I don't mind, but we should ask their parents first." All 3 kids stared at him, processing this new information like a math problem. "They're over there," Noah said, pointing vaguely toward the path. "We'll get them," Evan said, already turning. "Walking," Sean called after them. And together, they ran anyway. Sean exhaled and shook his head, gathering the lunch bag and setting it on the picnic table. He was halfway through lining up juice boxes when the kids returned, this time with an adult. For a split second, his brain refused to cooperate. Then recognition clicked into place, quiet but unmistakable. She was taller than he remembered, or maybe he'd grown shorter with responsibility. Dark hair pulled into a practical ponytail. Jeans, sneakers, a faded sweatshirt that suggested comfort over performance. She looked familiar in the way old photographs did, something softened by time. She stopped a few steps away, eyes flicking from the kids to him. "Oh," she said. Sean straightened. "Oh." There was a beat, then another. "Hi," she said, smiling cautiously. "I'm Claire." He knew that. He didn't say it. "Sean," he replied. "Evan's dad." "I know," she said, then winced. "I mean, I remember you. From high school." So did he. Claire Matthews. Always in the library. Always reading something thick and unapologetic. She'd been a grade below him, invisible in a way that wasn't shyness so much as deliberate quiet. "Right," he said. "Yeah. Hi." The kids, oblivious to the social recalibration happening above their heads, were already climbing onto the bench. "They were hoping to have lunch together," Claire said. "If that's okay." "It is," Sean said. "As long as you are." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Sure." They sat on opposite ends of the table, children between them like a friendly buffer. Lunch unfolded in organized chaos. Sandwiches unwrapped, juice boxes punctured too aggressively, crumbs everywhere. Sean watched Claire out of the corner of his eye. She was attentive without hovering, patient without being permissive. She reminded Lily to wipe her hands, laughed when Noah tried to trade half his sandwich for Evan's apple. At one point, Claire glanced up and caught Sean watching. "What?" she asked. "Nothing," he said quickly. "You just handle that well." She smiled, small and real. "Practice." "Same," he said. They shared a look that felt heavier than it should have. After a moment, Claire cleared her throat. "So, small world." "Very," Sean agreed. "I moved back 2 years ago," she said. "After my divorce." Sean nodded. "I'm sorry." She shrugged. "I'm not." Turns out my ex thought marriage was more of a suggestion than a boundary. Sean let out a surprised laugh before he could stop himself. "Sorry," he said. "That's funny," she supplied. "A little," he admitted. She smiled. "Good. I prefer it that way." Evan leaned over, whispering loudly, "Dad, can Noah come over sometime?" Sean opened his mouth to respond, then paused. "Maybe," he said. "We'll see." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Bold commitment." He chuckled. I like to pace myself. The kids finished eating and scattered back toward the playground, leaving silence behind them. Not awkward, just present. Well, Claire said finally, standing. This was nice. It was, Sean agreed. They watched their kids run, unburdened and loud. Maybe, Claire said, we'll see each other again. Sean didn't overthink it. I'd like that. She nodded once, then turned back toward the path, Lily's hand in hers. Sean sat back down on the bench, heart doing something unfamiliar. He opened his laptop again, but didn't type. For the first time in a long while, he wondered what might happen next. Chapter 2, Parallel Lines. Sean did not see Claire again for 3 days, which felt both reasonable and oddly disappointing. He told himself it was fine. Parks were communal but schedules were not. Kids were unpredictable, adults even more so. He fell back into his routine easily enough. School drop-offs, client calls, dinner negotiations that somehow always ended with Evan insisting that pasta tasted better without sauce. Still, when Saturday morning arrived bright and indecently pleasant, Sean found himself glancing toward the park with an expectation he didn't want to name. Can we go to the swings? Evan asked, already halfway into his shoes. Sean hesitated for exactly one heartbeat. Sure. The park was busier than usual, dotted with families and dogs and joggers who seemed offended by the existence of leisure. Sean scanned the familiar shapes without being obvious about it. He told himself he was just checking for open benches. Dad, Evan said, tugging his hand. Noah's here. Sean followed Evan's gaze. Claire stood near the jungle gym, her back to them. Lily perched on her hip like a permanent accessory. Noah was already sprinting toward Evan, the two boys colliding mid-run and immediately dissolving into laughter. Sean didn't move. Then Claire turned. She smiled when she saw him. Not startled, not tentative. Just open. Well, she said as they approached. If it isn't destiny disguised as playground chaos. Sean snorted before he could stop himself. I was going to say coincidence. She shifted Lily to her other side. You always the practical one? Only when I'm trying not to overthink things. Ah, Claire said. A fellow struggler. The kids were already gone, their conversation swallowed by motion. Claire gestured toward a bench. Mind if we sit? Sean nodded. Please. They sat with an inch of space between them, not deliberate but noticeable. Sean folded his hands loosely, resisting the urge to fidget. So, Claire said, how's your week been? Busy, he replied. Predictable, which I appreciate more than I used to. She nodded. I used to think predictable meant boring. And now I think it means safe. She smiled faintly. Funny how perspective shifts. Sean studied her profile, the calm confidence, the quiet humor. What do you do? He asked. I teach, she said. Middle school English. He winced sympathetically. You're braver than I am. She laughed. They're not so bad. Most days. They still believe stories can change things. Sean considered that. You always liked stories. Her eyebrows lifted. You remember that? I remember you always had a book, he said. Didn't matter where. She looked pleased in a way that surprised him. You noticed. I noticed things, he said, then immediately wondered if that sounded defensive. Claire tilted her head. What do you do? Consulting, Sean said. Data analysis, mostly. I work from home. That helps, she said. With Evan. Yeah, he agreed. It does. They fell into a rhythm that felt disarmingly natural. Parenting topics gave way to favorite foods, which led to bad date stories, which somehow circled back to their respective divorces without awkwardness. My ex, Claire said, watching Lily try to convince a pigeon to share a cracker, was very charming. Sean nodded. They usually are. He liked attention, she continued. A lot of it. From everyone. Sean grimaced. That gets old. It gets lonely, she corrected gently. He felt that land somewhere deep. My ex moved for her career, he said. It wasn't wrong. It just wasn't right for us. Did you ever resent her? Claire asked. Sean thought carefully. I resented the situation. Not her. Claire studied him. That takes work. It takes time, he said. And a kid who reminds you every day what matters. As if summoned, Evan appeared, breathless and triumphant. Dad. Noah says they're having popsicles at their house. Sean blinked. Do they? Claire laughed. Not yet, but I suppose we could. She met Sean's gaze. You're welcome to come too, if you want. Sean hesitated, not because he didn't want to, but because wanting felt dangerous. Then he nodded. Sure. Their houses were only a few blocks apart, which felt like a revelation and a joke all at once. The walk was easy, punctuated by the boys arguing over imaginary rules and Lily narrating everything she saw. Claire's house was modest and warm, filled with books and mismatched furniture. It smelled like cinnamon. Sorry about the mess, she said automatically. Sean looked around. It looks lived in. She smiled. That's my goal. They sat at the kitchen table while the kids demolished popsicles with alarming enthusiasm. So, Claire said, leaning back, this is what it looks like when parallel lives intersect. Sean considered that. Feels less like intersecting. More like running alongside. Her smile softened. I like that. The kids finished and disappeared into the backyard, their laughter filtering through the open door. Claire stood. Coffee? Sean hesitated only a moment. I'd love some. They stood side by side at the counter, close enough that Sean was acutely aware of her presence. You know, Claire said, handing him a mug, this doesn't feel like starting over. No, Sean agreed. It feels like continuing. They clinked mugs lightly, an unspoken acknowledgement passing between them. Outside, the kids shouted. Inside, something steady and hopeful took shape. Sean didn't name it. He didn't need to. Not yet. Chapter 3. Complications. The first message from Tessa arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, slipping into Sean's phone between a calendar alert and a reminder to pick up Evan's sneakers from the cobbler. Hey, can we talk about Evan? Sean stared at the screen longer than necessary. It wasn't that he hadn't expected this eventually. Tessa never disappeared entirely. She faded, the way sounds did when you walked away from them. There had been calls once a week, then once a month, then carefully worded texts that felt like obligations more than conversations. He had learned how to carry that quiet without resentment. Still, the timing felt pointed. He didn't reply immediately. He finished the report he was working on, closed his laptop, and started dinner. Evan chattered at the counter about a science project involving magnets and the possibility of building a robot dog. Dad, Evan said suddenly, Noah's coming over tomorrow, right? Sean smiled. That's the plan. And Lily too? Yes. And Claire. Sean paused, wooden spoon mid-stir. Probably. Evan grinned, satisfied, and returned to lining up carrot sticks like soldiers. Sean's phone buzzed again while the pasta boiled. I know it's been a while, Tessa wrote. I've been thinking a lot. Sean exhaled slowly and typed back. Sure. What's up? The response came almost immediately. I'm going to be in town next month. I'd like to see Evan. Sean leaned against the counter, the noise of boiling water suddenly too loud. He didn't feel angry. He felt careful. Okay, he replied. Let's talk details. He set the phone down and finished dinner, forcing himself to stay present. Evan deserved that much. Later that evening, after homework negotiations and a drawn-out bedtime routine that involved 3 questions about black holes and 1 emergency glass of water, Sean sat alone on the couch. He picked up his phone again. There was a text from Claire. Noah says Evan is officially his best friend. I think that makes us legally obligated to coordinate schedules. Sean smiled despite himself. I was afraid of that, he typed. What does the law require? At least 1 shared coffee and an unreasonable amount of snacks. He hesitated, then typed. Tomorrow? Her reply came quickly. Tomorrow works. The next afternoon, Claire's house was louder than usual. The boys had decided the backyard was a training ground for something vague but intense, while Lily supervised from a lawn chair with the authority of a monarch. Sean and Claire stood near the fence, coffee mugs in hand. You look distracted, Claire said lightly. Sean considered deflecting. Instead, he sighed. Tessa's coming to town. Claire nodded slowly. Your ex-wife. Yeah. To see Evan? Yes. Claire didn't flinch, but something in her posture shifted. Subtle. Controlled. That's a lot, she said carefully. It is, Sean agreed. I want Evan to have a relationship with her. I just don't want him disappointed. Claire studied him. You're protecting him. I'm trying. They fell quiet, watching the kids run. My ex texted me this morning, Claire said after a moment. Sean turned. Oh, he wants to talk, she said flatly. Apparently he's done some thinking. Sean snorted. That sounds familiar. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. It does. Are you going to meet him? She shook her head. No. I already know what that conversation looks like. Sean respected that. He also recognized the tension beneath her calm. That evening, after the kids had been collected and the house had settled into its usual hum, Sean found himself replaying the day. He liked how easy things felt with Claire. He liked how nothing needed explaining, which made the intrusion of old lives feel heavier. The call with Tessa happened 2 nights later. Her voice was the same, warm, confident, distant. Hi, Sean. Hi. How's Evan? He's good. He's growing. Like science. Still hates socks. She laughed softly. That tracks. There was a pause. I want to be more present, she said. I know I haven't been. Sean chose his words carefully. What does that look like to you? More calls. Visits. I want him to know I'm his mom. He knows, Sean said gently. He just doesn't know you very well. That landed between them. I don't want to disrupt his life, she said. But I don't want to be a stranger either. Sean closed his eyes. We can try to find something that works. Slowly. Thank you, she said, for not making this harder than it is. Sean didn't say that it already was. After the call, he sat in the dark for a long time. He didn't tell Claire right away. Not because he wanted to hide it, but because he needed to understand it himself first. Claire found out anyway. Not from him, from Noah, who announced it casually while tying his shoes. Evan's mom is coming to visit, he said. Claire's head snapped up. Oh, yeah, Evan said. Dad says we're gonna take it slow. Claire's smile was immediate and practiced. That sounds wise. But later, when the kids were busy building something noisy and doomed, she turned to Sean. You didn't mention that, she said quietly. Sean winced. I was going to. I know, she said. I just wanted to hear it from you. I didn't want to make it a thing before I knew what it was, he said. Claire nodded, but her arms crossed. I get that, she said. I just need to know where I fit. The question wasn't accusatory. It was honest. Sean met her gaze. You fit here, he said. With me. With the kids. That hasn't changed. She studied him, searching for uncertainty. Okay, she said finally. They stood there, the air between them charged but intact. Later that night, Claire's phone buzzed again. Her ex. I saw you at the park, the message read. You've moved on fast. Claire stared at the screen, jaw tightening. She didn't reply. Instead, she walked into the living room where Sean was helping Evan with a model spaceship. Everything okay? Sean asked. Claire looked at him, really looked. No, she said. But it will be. Sean nodded. Then we'll handle it. Together. Outside, the evening settled around the houses, quiet and unresolved. Neither of them knew what the next few weeks would bring. But both understood one thing clearly. Moving forward didn't mean the past stayed quiet. It just meant you didn't face it alone. Chapter 4. The almost Sean had not called it a date. He was very clear about that, with himself mostly. The invitation had been casual. Dinner at a local place that had crayons on the tables and a menu that understood children as a core demographic. Not an inconvenience. Kids welcome. Adults tolerated. Still, as he stood in his bedroom staring at two nearly identical button-down shirts, he suspected he was lying to himself. Dad. Evan called from the hallway. Why are you changing again? Sean glanced at his reflection. Because apparently I've decided I care about fabric today. Evan appeared in the doorway, already dressed, sneakers on the wrong feet. You look fine. Sean smiled. Thanks, buddy. You're going to dinner with Claire, Evan added, not a question. Yes, Sean said carefully. And Noah and Lily. And me, Evan said, pointing to his chest. Yes, Sean agreed. You too. Evan grinned. Good. I like when we all go. Sean's chest tightened in a way that felt both warm and dangerous. They arrived at the restaurant 5 minutes early, which Sean attributed to nerves and Evan's sudden fascination with punctuality. Claire was already there, Lily balanced on her hip, Noah inspecting the dessert display like it might disappear if he blinked. Claire looked up when she saw them and smiled, broad, unguarded. Hey, she said. Sean forgot which shirt he'd chosen and decided it hadn't mattered. Hey, he replied. The hostess led them to a booth that was one spill away from chaos. Crayons were immediately distributed. Lily colored the table. Noah tried to write his name in ketchup. Evan narrated everything. Sean watched Claire navigate it all with practiced ease, stepping in when necessary, letting things slide when they weren't worth the energy. So, Claire said once drinks were ordered. How was your week? Busy, Sean said. But good. Evan built something that may or may not violate basic laws of physics. It worked, Evan protested. Claire smiled at him. Of course it did. The food arrived in waves, and conversation followed in starts and stops, snippets between reminders and shared glances over spilled fries. At one point, Lily dropped her fork and burst into tears like the world had ended. I've got it, Sean said automatically, sliding out of the booth. Claire paused. You don't have to. It's okay, he said. I'm used to being on fork duty. He retrieved the fork, rinsed it, returned with a napkin. Lily sniffed, then smiled at him with sudden adoration. Thank you, Claire said softly. Anytime. They shared a look that lingered longer than necessary. The moment broke when Evan announced loudly, Dad, Noah says you and Claire are friends. Sean nearly choked on his water. Claire laughed, hand flying to her mouth. Does he? Yeah, Evan continued. But I think you're more than that. Sean froze. Claire raised an eyebrow. Oh, Evan nodded solemnly. Friends don't share fries. Sean cleared his throat. Buddy? I like it, Evan added. It's nice. Silence fell, not awkward, but heavy with meaning. Claire was the first to speak. Well, she said lightly. That's one perspective. Sean met her gaze. He's very observant. So I've noticed. After dinner, they spilled out into the evening, kids sugared and happy. The walk to the parking lot was easy, the air warm. This was fun, Claire said. It was, Sean agreed. Even if I think Noah tried to steal Evan's dessert. He earned it, Claire said. Sibling rules. The kids hugged goodbye like they'd known each other forever. Claire lingered, hands tucked into her jacket pockets. We should do this again. Sean nodded. I'd like that. There was a pause, a question hovering. Before either of them could step closer, Sean's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and felt the shift immediately. Tessa, he said quietly. Claire's expression changed, subtle, but unmistakable. I should take this, Sean added, already stepping aside. Claire nodded. Of course, Sean answered, turning his back slightly. Hey, hi, Tessa said. I just wanted to confirm dates. I don't want to impose. We can talk tomorrow, Sean said, keeping his voice even. I'm with Evan right now. Oh, she said. Okay, sorry. He hung up and turned back. Claire's smile was polite, controlled. Everything okay? She asked. Yeah, Sean said. Just logistics. She nodded, but the ease from earlier didn't return. They said goodnight soon after, hugs quick and careful. That night, after Evan was asleep, Sean sat on the edge of his bed, phone in hand. He typed a message to Claire, deleted it, typed again. I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to make things awkward. The reply took longer than usual. You didn't, she wrote. I just need a minute to recalibrate. Sean stared at the screen, heart heavy. Across town, Claire sat at her kitchen table, phone glowing in the dark. She wasn't upset at Sean, not really. She was upset at herself for hoping this could stay uncomplicated. Forgetting, just for a moment, that almost were often harder than numbers. Outside, the city settled into quiet. Inside two separate houses, two adults lay awake, thinking the same thought. This mattered. And that changed everything. Chapter 5. Old Promises. The first crack appeared on a Wednesday morning, quiet and almost polite. Sean noticed it while buttering toast. Evan sat at the table, legs swinging, humming to himself as he colored a picture that involved a spaceship, a dinosaur, and a figure labeled Dad with heroic stick-figure confidence. Sean watched him for a moment, warmth settling in his chest, then his phone buzzed. He didn't have to look to know who it was. Tessa, he said aloud, mostly to himself. Evan glanced up. Is she coming today? No, Sean said, forcing lightness. Not today. Oh, Evan considered this, then nodded. Okay, that was it. No disappointment, no questions. Sean swallowed hard. Later, after the school drop-off and a grocery run he barely remembered, Sean sat at the kitchen table and called Tessa back. They spoke easily at first, updates, logistics, neutral ground. She had booked a hotel. She wanted to take Evan to the zoo. She promised not to overwhelm him. I don't want him to feel like he has to perform, she said. I know I've missed a lot. Sean closed his eyes. He's a good kid. I know, she said softly. You did that. He didn't correct her. This wasn't about credit. Tess, he said after a pause. I need to ask you something. Okay. What are you hoping for here? The silence stretched. I don't want to come back, she said finally. Not like that. My life is elsewhere now. Sean let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. But, she continued, I want to be more than a name on birthday cards. That's fair, Sean said. As long as we move at Evan's pace. I understand, she said. And Sean, yeah, thank you for not turning me into the villain. He thought of all the years he'd quietly carried disappointment without naming it. Life's complicated, he said. People don't always mean to hurt each other. When the call ended, Sean sat very still. Closure, he realized, didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived like this, quiet, measured, heavy with responsibility. That evening, Claire canceled. The text was apologetic but brief. Today got away from me. Can we take a rain check? Sean stared at it longer than he meant to. Of course, he typed. Everything okay? The dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Yes, came the reply. Just tired. Sean accepted that answer on the surface. Underneath, something unsettled. They didn't see each other for 4 days. Not intentionally, just life pressing in. The kids had playdates with other friends. Schedules misaligned. Messages stayed friendly but surface level. Sean told himself this was normal. Claire told herself the same thing. But on Sunday afternoon, when the park was emptying out and the sun slanted low through the trees, Claire sat on her porch steps and admitted the truth to herself. She was scared. Not of Sean, not really. Of how easily he had become part of her mental landscape. How natural it felt to imagine mornings that included him. How quickly her guard had lowered. Her ex's words still echoed, unwanted and sharp. You've moved on fast. As if speed were the crime. As if pain followed a schedule. She hadn't replied. She hadn't needed to. But she'd felt it, that old instinct to justify herself. To explain. To soften the truth. That was the part that frightened her. The next time they saw each other, it was accidental. Sean was leaving the bakery with Evan, arms full of bread, when he nearly collided with Claire at the door. Oh, sorry, he said automatically. Claire looked up, startled, then smiled. Hi. Evan lit up. Claire. Hey, buddy, she said, crouching slightly. That's a lot of bread. It's for French toast. Evan explained solemnly. Important work, Claire agreed. They stood there, the moment stretching. You want to walk for a bit? Sean asked, hopeful but cautious. Claire hesitated, just long enough to notice. Sure, she said. They walked in silence at first, Evan skipping ahead, narrating an imaginary adventure. The air between Sean and Claire felt different. Not tense, but thinner. How have you been? Sean asked. Good, Claire said. Busy. Same. They both smiled, polite and incomplete. After a block, Claire stopped. I should say something. Sean turned to face her. Okay. She drew a breath. I don't want to rush this. He nodded. Me neither. I know, she said. And I like what's happening. I really do. I just need to go slower than I thought. Sean searched her face, looking for retreat, for rejection. I can do slow, he said. I've gotten pretty good at it. She smiled faintly. I know. That's part of why this feels dangerous. He laughed softly. Because I'm patient? Because you're steady, she corrected. And I don't want to lean too hard on that. Sean considered this. I don't feel leaned on. I do, she said honestly. And I need to make sure I'm standing on my own first. They stood there, Evan's voice drifting back toward them. Sean nodded. Okay. Okay, Claire echoed, surprised. Okay, he repeated. We go at your pace. She studied him. You don't sound disappointed. I am, he admitted. A little. But I'd rather do this right than fast. That settled something in her chest. Thank you, she said. They walked the rest of the way quietly, not distant but recalibrating. That night, Sean tucked Evan into bed, listening as his son recounted the bakery encounter with great enthusiasm. Claire smiled. Evan said, That's good. Sean brushed his hair back. Yeah, it is. Dad. You look different lately. Sean paused. Different how? Like when you're thinking, Evan said. But not sad thinking. Sean smiled. I'll take that. After Evan fell asleep, Sean sat on the couch and stared at the darkened room. He missed Claire already. Not her presence, but the ease of it. The almost. Across town, Claire sat at her kitchen table, phone face down, resisting the urge to text. She wasn't pulling away. She was bracing herself. Both of them understood something now that they hadn't before. Old promises, kept or broken, left marks. And love, if it was going to last, had to move carefully around them. Chapter 6. Distance. The distance didn't announce itself. It crept in quietly, disguised as good intentions and reasonable excuses. Sean noticed it in the pauses between texts, in the way conversations now began with updates instead of jokes. Nothing was wrong exactly, but nothing was effortless anymore. He told himself that was fine. This was what slow looked like. This was what careful felt like. Still, when Evan asked for the third time that week why Claire hadn't come to the park, Sean felt something tighten in his chest. She's busy, Sean said, crouching to tie Evan's shoes. Everyone gets busy sometimes. Evan considered this. Are we busy too? Sean smiled. Always. That Saturday, Sean took Evan to the park anyway. Routine mattered. The swings creaked familiarly, the trees just beginning to show signs of early spring. Sean sat on the same bench as always, laptop closed this time, watching Evan climb with determined concentration. He didn't expect to see Claire, which was why his breath caught when he did. She stood near the sandbox, phone pressed to her ear, shoulders tense. Noah hovered nearby, kicking at the dirt. Lily sat cross-legged, humming to herself. Sean watched from a distance, unwilling to intrude. Claire laughed briefly at something said on the other end of the line, but the sound was thin. When she hung up, she exhaled sharply and rubbed her face. Claire, Sean said, approaching slowly. She looked up, startled, then smiled. Hey, everything okay? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, just one of those calls. Sean didn't push. Evan's here, he said instead. If you want to join us. She glanced toward the playground, where Evan was waving enthusiastically. I'd like that, she said. The kids reunited easily, as if no time had passed. They ran off together, laughter stitching the space between them. Sean and Claire walked side by side, not touching. I've been meaning to check in, Sean said. I didn't want to crowd you. Claire nodded. I appreciate that. They sat on the bench, the same inch of space between them as before, familiar now, intentional. My ex showed up at my school, Claire said suddenly. Sean's head snapped toward her. What? He wanted to talk, she said. Said he was in the area. Did he say anything inappropriate? She shook her head. No, just inconvenient. Sean frowned. That's not okay. I know, she said. I handled it. I don't doubt that, he said. I just wish you'd told me. She met his gaze. I didn't want it to feel like I was dragging you into my mess. Sean leaned back thinking. Claire, I'm already in it. Not your past, but your present. She studied him, eyes searching. That's what scares me, she admitted. How quickly that feels true. Sean nodded slowly. I get that. They watched the kids for a moment, silence settling between them. Not strained, but heavy. My mom used to say distance was a test, Claire said softly. If something could survive space, it was meant to. Sean considered that. I think distance just reveals what was already there. She smiled faintly. That sounds like something you'd say. Occupational hazard, he said. Evan suddenly appeared, breathless. Dad. Lily says her shoe is haunted. Sean blinked. Haunted? Yes, Lily said seriously. It keeps untanging itself. Sean knelt to help, fingers quick and practiced. Claire watched him, something unreadable in her expression. Later, after goodbyes were exchanged and the kids dispersed, Claire lingered. Sean, she said, voice careful. I don't want to disappear. I just need to move through this without rushing past myself. He nodded. I'm not asking you to rush. She smiled, relieved. Thank you. That night, after Evan was asleep, Sean sat at the kitchen table, laptop open but untouched. He thought about the distance, not the physical kind, but the emotional space they were navigating. Across town, Claire sat on her couch, Lily asleep beside her, Noah lost in a book. She stared at her phone, thumb hovering. She typed, I'm glad we ran into you today. Deleted it. Typed again. Thank you for being patient. Deleted that too. Finally, she set the phone down and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Distance, she realized, wasn't absence. It was the space where trust decided whether to grow or retreat. And somewhere between two quiet houses, that decision was still being made. Chapter 7, Choosing Forward. The decision didn't come to Sean all at once. It arrived in pieces, small, unremarkable moments that added up to something undeniable. It was there when Evan asked, very casually, if Claire liked pancakes, and Sean realized he already knew the answer. It was there when Sean caught himself saving a joke just to tell her later. It was there in the way he no longer felt anxious about the distance, only aware of it, like a stretch of road that required attention, not fear. The morning it finally crystallized, Sean was standing in the kitchen, staring at the calendar on his phone. Tessa's visit was a week away. He had done everything right, planned carefully, prepared Evan, set expectations low and steady. He wasn't dreading it, but he wasn't untouched by it either. What surprised him was how little it had to do with Claire now. The past no longer felt like competition. That realization settled him. He closed the calendar, set his phone down, and did something he hadn't done in years. He chose. The text he sent was simple. Do you have time to talk today? Not logistics, just us. The reply came quickly. Yes. They met at the park because of course they did. It was late afternoon, the light slanting gold through the trees, the playground quieter than usual. The kids ran ahead as if guided by instinct, reclaiming their territory without discussion. Sean and Claire walked more slowly. I was hoping you'd ask, Claire admitted. Sean smiled. Me too. They sat on the bench, not the one they'd started on but close enough to matter. Sean rested his forearms on his knees, grounding himself. I've been thinking, he said. Claire tilted her head. That sounds serious. It is, he said, but not in a bad way. She waited. I don't want to keep hovering at the edge of this, he continued. Not pushing, not retreating. I want to be intentional. Her breath caught, just slightly. Sean noticed. I'm not asking you to move faster than you can, he added quickly. I just want you to know I'm here, fully. Not as a possibility, as a choice. Claire looked down at her hands. That's a lot. I know, he said, and you don't owe me anything back. I just didn't want my patience to feel like hesitation. She laughed softly. It hasn't. Not really. She looked up then, eyes clear. I've been so focused on not repeating old patterns, she said, that I almost made a new one. Sean frowned slightly. Which is? Keeping something good at arm's length just because it feels easy, she said. I've spent years bracing for impact. I forgot what it felt like to walk forward without armor. Sean absorbed that. You don't have to drop it all at once. I know, she said, but I don't want to hide behind it either. They sat with that for a moment, the sounds of children filling the space around them. My ex reached out again, Claire said quietly. Sean stiffened, then forced himself to relax. Okay. He apologized, she said. Properly. No excuses. No expectations. And how did that feel? Strangely freeing, she admitted. Because I didn't need it anymore. Sean nodded. That matters. It does, she agreed. And so does this. She turned to him fully then. I want to choose forward too. Sean's chest tightened. Not with fear this time, but relief. Good, he said. Because I was hoping you would. Evan barreled toward them, breathless. Dad, Claire. We made a game where the ground is lava but only on Tuesdays. Sean blinked. It's not Tuesday. Evan grinned. It is in the game. Claire laughed, the sound easy and unguarded. I like his rules, she said. Later, after the kids had worn themselves out and the sky had deepened into evening, Sean walked Claire to her car. They stood there for a moment, neither rushing to leave. I should tell you, Sean said. Tessa's coming next week. Claire nodded. I know. He searched her face. And you're okay? She considered it honestly. I am. Not because it's easy, but because I trust you. That word landed carefully between them. Thank you, he said. She smiled. Just don't disappear into handling things mode. He chuckled. Fair. She hesitated, then reached out, brushing her fingers against his wrist. Not a dramatic gesture, but deliberate. This, she said softly, feels right. Sean covered her hand with his. It does. They didn't kiss. Not because they didn't want to, but because neither of them needed it to confirm what they just decided. That night, Sean tucked Evan into bed, listening as his son recounted the lava game with increasing embellishment. Dad, Evan said sleepily, Claire's nice. Sean smiled. She is. I think, Evan continued, eyes half closed. We're doing good. Sean swallowed. Yeah, buddy. We are. Across town, Claire sat on her couch with a cup of tea, the quiet wrapping around her gently instead of closing in. She didn't feel like she was starting over. She felt like she was stepping into something already in motion, something chosen. Distance, she realized, hadn't been a barrier. It had been a proving ground. And now, finally, they were walking the same direction. Chapter 8, The Long View. The morning Tessa arrived. It rained. Not dramatically, no thunder, no cinematic downpour. Just a steady, unassuming drizzle that softened the edges of the neighborhood and made everything smell clean and new. Sean stood at the kitchen window with a mug cooling in his hands, watching droplets race down the glass. Is today the day? Evan asked from the table, spoon suspended over his cereal. Yes, Sean said. After school. Evan nodded, absorbing this, then went back to eating. Okay. Sean waited for more. Questions? Nerves? Excitement? But Evan simply asked if he could bring his dinosaur book to show her. You can bring whatever you want, Sean said. That seemed to satisfy him. Sean texted Claire before leaving for the school run. Today's the day. I'm steady. Just wanted you to know. The reply came a few minutes later. I'm thinking of you. And Evan, you've got this. He did feel steady. Not numb, not braced. Just grounded. The meeting at the hotel was brief by design. Sean stayed nearby but out of sight, sitting in the lobby with his laptop closed, trusting the careful structure they'd agreed on. Evan emerged 45 minutes later, holding a small bag and wearing an expression Sean couldn't immediately read. How was it? Sean asked gently. Evan shrugged. She smells like flowers. Sean smiled. That sounds like her. She listened. Evan added after a moment. I showed her my book. That's good. She said she's proud of me. Sean swallowed. She should be. That night, after Evan was asleep, Sean sat on the couch and let the day settle. There was no ache, no sharp relief. Just a sense of something placed where it belonged. His phone buzzed. How did it go? Claire asked. Better than I expected, he replied. Quietly good. There was a pause. Then, want company? No pressure. Sean didn't hesitate. Yes. Claire arrived with a loaf of bread she claimed was emotional support carbohydrates, and kicked off her shoes like she'd always belonged there. They sat at the kitchen table, tearing pieces off and talking in low voices. You look lighter, she said. I feel resolved, he said. Not because everything's perfect, just because it's honest. She nodded. That's rare. He met her gaze. I'm glad you're here. Me too. They didn't talk about the future, not explicitly. They talked about Evan's science project, about Lily's insistence on mismatched socks, about Noah's newest obsession. Ordinary things. Anchoring things. Weeks passed. Spring unfolded fully, trees green and generous. Their lives began to overlap in ways that didn't require effort. School pickups coordinated without discussion. Dinners shared when schedules aligned. Quiet evenings where everyone did their own thing in the same room. One Saturday morning, Sean woke early to the sound of movement in the kitchen. He padded out to find Claire at the stove, hair still sleep-mussed, flipping pancakes with focused determination. Evan sat at the table, supervising. She burns them on purpose, Evan whispered conspiratorially. The edges are crunchy. Claire glanced over her shoulder. They are textured. Sean laughed, leaning against the counter. The sight hit him, not like a revelation, but like recognition. This was it. Not fireworks. Not declarations. Just a morning that fit. After breakfast, they walked to the park together. The same one where it had started, though it felt different now. Not a meeting place, but an extension of home. Claire sat beside Sean on the bench, close enough that their shoulders touched without comment. You know, she said, watching the kids run, I used to think happiness would feel louder. Sean smiled. I used to think it would feel fragile. And now it feels sustainable. She nodded. I like that word. They stood when the kids called for them, joining the game without hesitation. Lava rules changed. Alliances shifted. Laughter echoed. Later, as the sun dipped low and the park emptied, Claire reached for Sean's hand. This time he didn't pause. They walked home together, the long view stretching out ahead. Not perfect, not promised, but chosen. And that, Sean knew, was more than enough.